Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The New Beyond. I'm your host, Judith Rich. It's wonderful to be back here in The New Beyond with all of you. And I've invited a very special guest to share some time with us today. My friend and actually colleague, Meredith Breitstein. Full disclosure, Meredith and I are work colleagues
Yeah.
on one level. And I really appreciate her taking the time out of her busy life and busy schedule to be with us today on The New Beyond. So let me just give you a few bars on Meredith. Six-time award-winning keynote speaker is Meredith Breitstein. She tours the world, encouraging leaders to step into their destiny, walk through fear, and shine by finding their courage. And Meredith, just a little editorial piece here. As I familiarized myself with your background and your story, getting ready for this interview, these words describe you, don't they? Stepping
Wow.
into your destiny, walking through fear, and shining by finding your courage. This is really your story.
Well, I hope that by sharing it and having the courage to do so, exactly that, Judith, it inspires others. So thank you.
Yes,
Compliment.
yes, it does. And the word shine is in all caps when it comes to Meredith. That is really her brand, so to speak. And so I am calling this episode Born to Shine because I think that's really the backstory of the front story. Meredith specializes in helping teams and her audiences speak up, stand out, and command a room with their presence, which is precisely what Meredith does. After coaching thousands of leaders, she's learned there are 5 steps all of us can take to level up and start right away. And we're going to get into that in a bit. In Meredith's TED Talk, Don't Waste a Minute, Shine Right Now, she inspires her audiences to take committed action, to show up powerfully so they can shine after adversity. Do you hear how this word shine is woven through? And if you could see Meredith, now if you know Meredith, you know that who she is someone who shines. She is a megawatt human being with a megawatt personality and smile, which you cannot see, but I can. And it's amazing. She's frequently hired as a motivational speaker, MC, and a leadership trainer for organizations to help leaders and teams stand out and what? Shine. She is also a seasoned TV journalist who found her passion for storytelling while working for a whole variety of TV networks, such as Fox, ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN. And for over a decade, she has served as the host of her own TV show, The Meredith TV Show, helping others share their amazing stories of overcoming adversity and finding the courage to shine. Meredith's 2 greatest loves are hitting the road while teaching her audiences how to what? Shine. And I like this, chasing sunsets at home on the beach in California with her husband, son, and rescue puppy, Pepper. I love that. Welcome to the New Beyond, Meredith. So delighted to have you here.
Thrilled to be here and honored. Thank you, Judith.
Our roles are a bit reversed today in this interview because you are normally the one who is asking the questions and inviting the stories of the people that you're interviewing to be shared. And now you're on the other side of that equation. So, I'd like to focus on something other than what you normally talk about in your speeches and in your TED Talk and when you're that public personality on the stage, absolutely commanding a stage, absolutely commanding a room. in the way that you encourage people to do in their lives. You are absolutely a demonstration of your message, which I love. But I always like to explore the story behind the story and to look deeper into what's underneath all that we see in you as a public person. What's underneath all of that? So if we were to pull back the curtain and take a peek behind the public personality, behind closed doors, so to speak, who is the Meredith? Here's my first question to you, my friend. Who is the Meredith you know yourself to be in the quiet recesses of your soul?
Oh, Judith, I love this question because I don't think people talk about the soul enough. And we are souls. And I think my mother would say, like, oh, you are such a sweet old soul. Even when I was a little girl, I always had a lot of questions for other people. And I think what happened was many years ago, I started to question what I could personally do in this world. And it took me a long time to figure that out. And now, on the most quiet moments, to me, it's just quite simple, actually. I'm really committed to being a light. And when I think about my soul, I rise and the light begins and then it grows with the day. And what I figured out after a long road is, we're all here for different reasons. I really feel I'm here just to be the light. The light for my family at home is where it starts. And then in the bigger scheme of things, teaching people how to shine comes from my soul's mission to just light up my life, which extends into the world and to the other people. And I always think about this, like, what would it look like if we just honored who we are instead of struggled for so long and for so many years as I did, and I know so many others, in trying to be something else. I mean, I remember very clearly as a TV anchor, a young TV anchor, being told, nobody cares about me. Don't talk about your personal business on the news anchor desk. And no surprise, many years later, after thinking that just sucks, I walked away. And everybody says, like, who walks away from being a TV anchor? I did.
Amazing.
Happily.
And you walked away and then created the Meredith show?
I did, because I actually felt like I was tired of fires and murders with a side of kidnapping every day, that darkness. And the light in me, couldn't stand it, wanting to always share the bright stories. And I do think in human nature, people want to hear good things and good news. They don't want fires and murders and kidnappings to be the top of their focus.
Oh my goodness. I will second that. My hand is raised. I think we are exhausted. In the collective, human beings are exhausted with the kind of news. And now, given the nature of communication, we are surrounded by, news about what's happening everywhere, all at once, all the time. So there's almost no place where we can get away from the news, which is, as you just described, fires, murders with a side of kidnapping. It's like, so I can totally understand your desire to want to open other avenues of information and bring something positive into the world, bring something into the world that uplifts and inspires people.
Thank you. And I think, going back to the soul and the real me, like, I love quiet time, believe it or not. Somebody who enjoys getting paid to speak in front of large audiences. I love being alone. I'm a voracious reader, and I am really committed to just being a lifelong learner. So that fills me up and helps me, not only lights me up, but help keep lighting other people up with new and innovative ideas and ways of looking at things. I'm a wild and crazy committed cook. Lately, I've been going through a baking phase, and there's nothing like connecting with family and friends over a meal. I happen to be Jewish, so I love inviting friends, family, guests every Friday night if I can, into our home. That's part of our tradition and legacy. And, I didn't actually grow up with that. I didn't grow up in a very religious house or anything, but I just love being a connector. I love connecting people not only with great opportunities, but in the simple, quiet moments in our home, just deeply, I think to your point, there's often a public persona for people. And then sometimes people show up differently in private. What I'm honored to say through the years is what you see is now what you get. There really isn't, I've really gone through great lengths and done a lot of work, as you know, and
Yes.
it knows me from way back when, to lift the veil. And that's what I'm treasuring more than anything, whether people see me on television or meet me through a speaking engagement and then get to know one another outside of it. The greatest compliment is, wow, you really are. You practice what you preach, and you are who you say you are. And I didn't always used to be that way. I certainly put on a big front when I was in television for so many years, and it took a long time to pull it away. And honestly, losing my dad much younger than I wish I would have, or earlier than I wanted him to go for sure, caused me to freeze up a bit, put the armor back on. And at first I didn't realize how bad it was, but you know, life, as I often say on stage, I say in person, I really believe a swift kick in the pants is inevitable for all of us, and we often don't see it coming. And I love the beauty of the mess in the South. I learned, I lived there quite some time, bless the mess. And there's really truth to
Yes.
that. We learn so much from the hardest things we've gone through. And I treasure being on the other side of dwelling in it. And not that certainly at times I have to be really real. I get taken down from time to time too, for sure, but no longer for like a month. I'll give myself a day
Yeah.
or two, and then I really
Yeah.
check in with myself, the people around me. I'm not myself, am I? I need to really work on this. I try to be really true to honoring not only my feelings, but reminding that in others. I think our souls are screaming, if I'm being honest. So many people I work with are wishing and wanting and hoping for more, and being that stand in the light for just reminding people it just takes one choice to find that courage to break
Yes.
out of that. Uh,
Yes.
it's
We're a
definitely,
thought away. We're a choice away. We're
yes,
a synapse away between our brain cells firing to whatever it is that we really seek and want. We're just one thought away. I'd like to go back if we could to your childhood, because I know in one of your talks, I can't remember if it's your TED talk or it's some other talks that I listened to in prepping for this interview. You share about, as a kid, having moved 14 times. Was it before high school?
yes,
Having gone to 14 different schools?
yes. It was wild.
And of course, the first question that came up for me as I heard you sharing this was, what did your dad do? What kind of job
I
did your
get
dad
that.
have?
Yeah, I get that question a lot. A lot of people wonder if he was in the military. He
Yeah.
was, but not during that time, ironically. My parents were entrepreneurs. And my dad, through the years, owned a nightclub in Texas with my uncle, multiple restaurants, an ice cream store, a luncheonette. They managed a comedian named Gallagher, my mom and dad, when I was a little girl. But one of the most beautiful things that came out of that craziness was I learned my mother was just so masterful back then. I never even realized it in the art of positivity. And she just enrolled me at a very young age, that I was lucky that I got to have friends all across the United States.
Now that's a good reframe, right?
I believe I'm like, wow, I am the luckiest. I grew up having friends in Texas and California and New Jersey and Pennsylvania. And wow. So
How was it for you adapting to these new environments? You were always the new kid on the block.
yes.
So
Well,
how was it for you making friends?
it was really interesting because I don't remember a time where I didn't make friends easily. My mom taught me to bring a cheerful smile, and if I didn't know anybody in a room, not to shrink back, which was certainly a possibility. I mean, I'm sure that some people could say they moved 14 times and that was the trauma of their life. Thankfully,
Yes,
for
yes.
me, it opened up doors because to this day, I walk into a room and I look around and I scan and I look for anybody who will make eye contact or even somebody who won't and walk straight over and say, "Hi, my name is Meredith. What's yours?" And learning that practice so young, was remarkable. If you think about it, I was president of my class, my I believe it was my freshman year in high school, and that took a lot of chutzpah, as my family would say, or nerve, to run when you don't know that many people. And
Yes.
I actually, the story goes, I did not win my freshman year, but I also learned grit and determination. It was a great experience and failure. And so my sophomore year, that's what it was. I won student body president. And back then, I think I listened to my parents, perhaps more than most kids. My dad said, you know, you can be president of the world. So I just thought, oh, might as well start with running for president. No, and
So
I think it was
you were surrounded by positive messages, empowering messages. Did you have the feeling as a kid that you were seen by your parents? Because
well, yes.
a lot of people don't have that experience of really being seen as a child.
Oh, I was crazy about my mom and dad, and I knew they were crazy about me. But the truth is, nothing's ever perfect. My dad was working crazy hours, and my mom was not a stay-at-home mom. In fact, Judith, I remember a really funny moment going over to my friend's house, and it was like during the day, and her mom was home, and I said, "What is your mom doing home?" And she's like, "She takes care of me." I'm like, "But what's her job?"
Taking care.
Imagine as little kids, like we don't know what's going on. I thought it was normal to have two parents who weren't home a lot. So it wasn't perfect in the sense that I was going to daycare. And but there was a deep love. And my parents did not have easy childhoods. So there is this stereotype that difficulty is just passed through generations. And it does happen for sure. But in my parents' case, I guess my dad grew up really, really impoverished in a single parent household, and he chose not to recreate that. And he was adamant that my sister and I, despite not having tremendous wealth by any means, that we were going to go to college with really not a lot saved up or much financial support, but it was just the spirit of, you girls get to go to college, because I didn't. And I believe.
Yeah. Did you kind of entrepreneur your way to college? How did you get there with no money?
Oh my gosh. Great question. Yes, I had to be very scrappy because I found out that my high school had a scholarship. I wound up interning for CBS News, and they gave me a scholarship. My high
Now,
school.
how did that happen? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but this just didn't fall out of the sky. How did you end up interning for CBS News? And you were in what, high school?
Yes.
Now,
Uh,
how did that happen?
I became obsessed at a very young age. So backing up even further, you had asked me about my childhood. Some of the things I did have to overcome were painful shyness as a little girl, like when I was 5. And so I had to overcome that. And my parents couldn't quite get me out of it when I was really little. So I remember auditioning for, somebody suggested in my high school that they brought in televisions. I went to this huge high school. There were 3,000 students, and I auditioned to be a morning anchor there. And I remember like shaking with fear, like, I hope my stutter doesn't take me out of the game, and sweating. And then, like a miracle, I read off the teleprompter and my stutter was gone forever. And I wound up falling in love with journalism, with being the morning news anchor in high school, and literally being able to light up people's days with things like the weather or a fun story. But I also looked into the camera one day and thought, people get paid to do this? So I was always very curious. I think there was always a journalist in me from a very small age. My mom said I was like this weird kid who asked 1,000 questions about everything you could think of. And so I decided that I was going to figure out how Barbara Walters gets her job. And somebody told me that you should work at a TV station or learn from it. So I became the first student to intern in my high school. I also created a similar program in my college. I became the first student to work with Barbara Walters at my college because I was obsessed with her. But this is weird, Judith. Some people don't know who she is. She's passed on, but she was the first
Yeah.
woman to be a news anchor in television history.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
Oh,
so
she's an icon for those of us who are old enough
you
to
remember.
remember her. Absolutely an icon in as a female journalist and a
Yeah,
great interviewer. She always asked the questions nobody else dared to ask.
tell people, and the most important thing we can do is speak our dreams, because the way I got to work with Barbara Walters was because I wouldn't shut up about it. And so when in college, at my college summer job, my girlfriend and I were working at the front desk. She was checking people in, and she saw something about ABC News. She knew I had had an internship in college set up. I was still so focused. And she said, switch lanes with me. You need to check this gentleman into the hotel. And she said, just trust me. So I looked down and I saw the name Wallace. And I said, Mr. Wallace, and I'm typing and then looking down and looking up at him. I'm interning at ABC. Do you think that'd be a good fit for me? And he saw my name tag and he said, well, Meredith, that depends. What do you want to do after college? And I said what I always say, I want to retire Barbara Walters. And then he just smirked, pulled out his business card and said, well, I'm Barbara Walters' producer. So
Oh my God.
you don't need that PR internship. You should intern with me. And like the rest was history. It unlocked
Wow.
so many gorgeous doors.
That is really, that's gobsmacking. You
Yeah.
know, I'll tell you what, this is such a perfect demonstration of the universe conspires on our behalf.
Yes.
That we speak our hearts, we declare, what we teach. I know you have experienced the kind of leadership work that I teach and train and coach, and you're a part of that same organization that I am. This is really how it is that we ended up being colleagues. And we teach that declare without evidence. And
Yes.
there you were declaring without evidence that you wanted to retire Barbara Walters, and you put that out there into the space, and the universe conspires on our behalf. So you have really been a living example, like a living laboratory of everything you teach, right?
I'd like to think so. And certainly there were times where I wasn't congruent. And what I mean by that is it took a long time to find the courage to run down the dream. For instance, I had this belief that my husband was Jewish and waiting for me in California, but I waited till I was 41 to have the courage to get there. So I didn't always, have the leadership that I live my life with now, or
Yeah.
the alignment.
Yeah.
Uh, but I think following your heart and your intuition can't be underrated. Like you can never go wrong when you do those things. And too often, just like me, we shrink back from fear. There's a lot of fear about the expense of California, and
Yeah.
obviously going somewhere you've never been to meet someone you don't know, and just trusting the universe. But my dream husband was Jewish and he was here. And so
And he is.
yes.
And you
And
were you were married not that long ago.
yeah, prior to him, or I mean, to my husband, I'm divorced. And my husband and I were, yes, recently married. And so I'm a stand for never ever giving up. And everything happens for a reason, for sure.
You absolutely are. It's your lived experience, and it's what you teach, and it's what you represent. Um,
And so for sure.
yeah. One of the things that I focus on in the work that I do with people is to invite people to really recognize and dig deep into their what the Romans called genius, which is not about intellect or IQ, but it's about the calling that is in our soul that we came in with. And one might look at you, I look at you, and my experience of you is someone who is called compelled, dare I say, because I think a calling is a compellment. You know, when we're living aligned with a calling, it's the thing we can't not do. We must do that thing. In my experience of you, at your commitment and your dedication and your relentlessness on, you know, getting out there and being an inspiration and shining and empowering people to shine themselves, because it's not just about you, and I know that you know that, and you're a vehicle for that message. And so my curiosity about that for you is, what is that what is that genius in you? What is that genius in you, that spark in you that makes you uniquely you? Like there is no other Meredith Breitstein on the planet. You are a unique, one of a kind human being. And I think what makes us that is this thing called our calling, or what the Romans called our genius. So, do you have any thoughts about that? Like, what is that spark in you? You could have, like you said, moving 14 times, you could have shrunk from all of that.
Of
You could have
course.
stayed that shy girl who didn't have confidence in herself, but something in you, and I'm going to say it's your genius, really propelled you forward, because that is, you teach people to step into their destiny. That is your destiny. So, do you have thoughts or feelings about what that is?
I feel like we should play the Adele song "Rolling in the Deep." If there was a music cue, like, yes, okay, here we go with the deep. I love it. And that's where we are. I think when I really take a look and we're peeling back things, I have this funny memory. I was hired at a CNN affiliate to take over. And one of the first things they said was I was going to need to fire Bill, my videographer. And there was something in me that said, that's interesting. I was curious about it. I got to know Bill. Turns out Bill didn't like his predecessor, who was in my position, much at all, but he was a great videographer and editor. And we just really, I allowed him to work really hard. And fast forward to a year later, not only did Bill turn it around, but Bill got a promotion and a raise that year. And he asked me, I always think about Bill, you know, what's in you? He saw me come over, take over the news division, build brand new shows, not only not fire him, but promote him. He goes, where do you get this drive?
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's not, and it's always, I find, for the good. Like when somebody says I can't, I see them and I hold them high and say, yes, you can. And I push them in a loving but tough way. I can be really tough, actually. Ask our teenager. We had a tough conversation with him. But I think what I've been born with, as I look back time and time again, whether it's inspiring the best out of other people or pushing them out of their comfort zones or reminding them of what their gifts are and they were born to do, there is this inherent, like, I can't not say it. I think a lot of people shrink back from difficult conversations. But if I see somebody, you know, in Judith and I, we say in our world, we would call it a racket. But if I see somebody spinning in something that's not serving them, a pattern that keeps bubbling up, I'm that person, whether I know you well or not, that would say, I'd like to talk to you for a moment. My mother calls us dragon ladies. Like we're called in when nobody else will have the conversation. She's been in management.
Oh, amen, sister.
But everybody needs a dragon lady in their life. And I think I was born to have the difficult conversation because everything I do is governed from what I've discovered. And it took a lot of time to figure this out, from love. I'm a big, even though I'm tough, I'm a big love bug inside. And I
Yes, you
love
are.
you enough to say, like, what you're doing is not working out, and here's why. And I love you enough to stop you in the middle of something and shock you and tell you about how amazing I see something that you might not even be seeing. And I think that that goes back to the light. That's probably where Shine, you know, my brand and my work were born from, is because this is how I can't help myself. I live my life. I see the good in everything. And believe me, I have bad days. You know, I have to remind
Yeah, what's a bad day? What constitutes a bad day for you?
oh man. My father-in-law is not doing well. He has been he can't use his arms or legs. I adore him, by the way. My mother-in-law is in her third year of caregiver burnout. And the other day I was trying to help her. I was recently trying, I won't accept, Medicare has declined all physical therapy and said he's hopeless, and I won't accept that. And so for 6 weeks, I have been relentless, to your point, into finding a program that will have him, that will physically pick him up, take him to physical therapy, and work his whole body multiple times a week. But I have been so discouraged. Like, what is wrong with the healthcare system? And then I'm so sad because my mother-in-law can't help him. She's just beside herself in sorrow, grief, and burnout, and not knowing how to help her. Today I'm going to work on helping her with cheering up with something I have in mind. But I think life throws us so much at once. 2 years ago, just when I met the love of my life, I talk about my son, but he's technically my stepson. I never call him that because I love him like I gave birth to him. I've always wanted a son, and what a treasure to have a teenager in my life. But
Yeah. Yeah.
my husband and I went through a very, very tough period because we were just thrilled to learn, in a miracle, because I'm an older woman, that I was pregnant with twins 2 years ago. And then,
Oh,
yeah, 90 days later, I lost them. So I
oh,
went
I'm
through,
so sorry. Yeah.
thank you. But I went through such a dark period. And then after that, I lost my most treasured rescue puppy. Her name was Biscuit. And so it was like 3 deaths in my mind in rapid succession. And Judith, I could not just dig deep and pull out. So I love telling people, the truth is, for the first time in my life, I got myself into therapy, and it was a gift from God. Like, I just think that when life kicks you in the pants, and it keeps kicking you in the pants, and you can't fight your way out, you have to, just like I say with everything else, be relentless in the pursuit of turning it around. And if I can't turn it around, we have to be great leaders, and humans in general have to know when they're maxed out. Like, I could not have the beautiful life I've had if I didn't have beautiful trainers like you in my life, and haven't been through and done the work, and haven't learned that you can't do it alone. So I joke, I give these huge keynotes, Judith, talk about not putting on a front. And I always say, I'm still in therapy because my therapist wanted to break up with me once I started showing signs of so much joy after time. But then I realized, like, any high performer has an edge or something to always be working on. And also the beauty of setting boundaries. So now, don't ever call me Monday at 1 o'clock, because it's Fiona the Great. That's my therapist time. And I think it's a source of strength to be willing to say, I'm always working on myself.
Oh, I love it. Oh, I so love it. Yeah, there was a question coming up for me, and I think, I don't know, I'm not sure if this is the answer, but you have been such a great advocate for others. And my question was, let's go back, who advocated for you? Was there anyone outside your family, beyond your mother, who advocated for you when you were young, when you were this kid who was always the new kid? Was there anyone back then who really saw you and advocated for you?
Yeah, I remember having along the way a lot of beautiful souls just come into my life. There was a principal, and I really didn't like him, actually. He said, "You're doing too many things." When I was a senior in high school, get this, I founded like 3 clubs. One was to visit and entertain the elderly. I was singing in the choir. I had multiple internships, actually. The one at CBS wasn't the only one, but when I figured out how cool that was, I just kept going. And he said, "You're going to burn yourself out, at this clip." And I even tutored students with English as a second language that same year. And he's like, "This is too much," and whatever. And it's interesting. You never forget. I have, and he was right. Like, I burnt myself out later in life, but I also am an entrepreneur who works in many spheres. So I see, like, the beauty of both sides of that. But now I'm a stand for not burning yourself out. And that's why I talk about mental health, because I think, as any entrepreneur, many entrepreneurs do, we fire on all cylinders sometimes and don't
Yeah.
take the best care. But I'll tell you, there was one person, now that you asked me, Mr. Erickson, my fourth grade teacher, was so embarrassed. This is really funny. They put me in the mentally gifted program, which was mortifying for me because nobody I knew was in this class that I had to go to. And they sat us all, they had this, Mr. Erickson had this exercise. And in fourth grade, they put us in the semicircle and we went person by person, and everybody in the group had to contribute and say what everybody else's gifts were. Well, I was like practically crying for two reasons. I had no idea what my gifts were, if I even had any, and why I was stuck there in this class. And I was the last person to go. So I listened to everybody else's. And of course, I knew Tommy was brilliant in math, and we all talked about that. And then just like already in tears streaming down, Mr. Erickson says, "Well, what's Meredith's gift?" And then I hear like silence, and they're thinking, I'm like, it's getting really bad with me. I'm about to become hysterical. And then some kid says, "All he can do is talk. She's a talker." And so silence ensues. And Mr. Erickson says, "Well, kids, Meredith may be the luckiest of all because she has the gift of gab. And that will unlock doors for her to talk herself into or out of thousands of beautiful opportunities and occasions."
Indeed, it has.
And so it did, what a defining moment. I often think back to that. And he gave me, my parents really didn't have a lot of energy or intention on what I was going to do. But there were a few people. And then later on, somebody said, like, maybe you should have a microphone and interview people because of all the questions that I was always asking. So journalism then became on my radar. But it's interesting where you can just have a moment with some human. And that is something else I'm so passionate about, Judith. And you know this because you can unlock a breakthrough in somebody so unexpectedly and quickly.
Yeah.
And I just want to be that for as many people as I can, as often as I can, because I've received that gift. And I think it's the gift that keeps giving.
As you're sharing here, Meredith, there's a question that's coming up for me, and I'm going to ask it. Have you ever considered running for office?
Uh,
Oh, you're cracking up over there. Audience, you can't see Meredith, but she's
uh, once my friend who was the mayor of neighboring town, who's my very good friend, was trying to convince me to become the mayor. But Judith, I hate politics. I hate
yeah.
the dirtiness of it. So
Yeah.
I ask you, what makes you think that is a good idea?
Well, because I see your heart and I know that you, I absolutely align with you about the messiness and all the stuff, the yuck around politics. And yet, as I think about the kind of world that you and I are committed to creating, the kind of world we want to live into, we want our kids to live into, and grandkids, and all of that, it's going to take a different kind of politician. It's going to take a different kind of politics. And I see in you, not that that would be necessarily the ultimate be all end all um, destination for you, but I see the qualities I would love to see in someone, in a leader on that scale. I mean, you are definitely a leader and you have such a huge heart. You genuinely care about people and you listen, and I just see you're creative and you're curious, and I just would love to see you, sitting in Congress, or being a state senator or someone who really makes a difference on that scale. So that's going to lead me to my it's going to lead me to my next question.
By the way, I never saw that coming. And thank you for the thought, because it's something I parked away a long time ago when I didn't run for mayor. Thought about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you live in California.
True. We need a lot of help here.
Well, not only do you need a lot of help, but there is a lot of talent in California, and I live in California too. So I know the paradigm here, the consciousness here would totally support, I think, someone like you. All right,
Oh,
we're gonna just let that one lie there on the table. Who knows? But looking out there in front, how old are you now?
48. I like to
40.
say 48 and great.
48 and great. Yes, you are.
Thank you.
So go out there 20 years. Imagine yourself 20 years in the future. And who have you become? And what are you doing? And what have you created?
Wow. I think the the first thing that comes to mind for me is my husband and I definitely want to grow our family. And so I think I would become a mother times 2 or 3. That could be in the cards, an older mother, but nonetheless, we believe
Now,
there are.
do you imagine that you would actually give birth to these children, or would you adopt?
I'm not attached, but I think the adoption is more likely. And my husband and I are actually already certified to adopt foster children. So we've
Awesome.
definitely thought about that, because we think that, we know that California has 10,000 children, get this, Judith, a month, that go into the system desperately in need of good parents. So
Mm.
it's really resonated with us. So that's one thing. But in the grander scheme of things, I think I'm going to retire my husband. That's our plan. Though he loves what he does. He's an educator and he loves children. And he is a school administrator. But we love to travel. And so 20 years from now, I'll probably be speaking just as much as I do now, if not more. And I will not actually change a thing. At the moment, sounds very odd to say. So few people, I think, are lucky enough to feel it. I'm living my dream in every way possible. Not only have I finally found my forever home in California, but my heart is so full because I have a family here. And my career is not work for me. I love everything that I do. I love speaking. And last year, I think it was last year, my husband and I went to 20 countries. So we'd like to.
20 countries?
Yes, we are world traveler. By the way, I didn't even like traveling very much prior to meeting my husband. That was a big stretch for me. I'm like
Was that work related travel or hybrid?
mostly just for fun. My husband has this, he supports my career, and all of our dreams and goals jointly are supported by one another. But his biggest passion beyond us is travel. And so I get to get out of my comfort zone and go to places like the jungle with him last year in Peru. And I've just never been so many places that we're going to Australia for the first time this winter. And so I will have probably made it to all the continents, retired my husband for sure with the trajectory that we're going. So that the plot is not that he doesn't want to work. He'll run the business part of my business, but we want to have the freedom to travel more eventually, and raise some kids and make the world a better place in every way that we can. And if I'm still on track for that, fast forward 20 years, I will, this is my promise, be beautiful and gray like you. Because you
Oh,
realize it or not, I'm 100% gray under this. And
oh,
I'm
you
so
are?
sick of this dying. Like,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
my next fun and breakthrough. So I'll be hopefully gorgeous and gray like you, and
Oh,
will be touring the world doing exactly what I'm doing. But maybe I'll have reached millions more. It's an honor to be on television. It's an honor to hit so many stages now. But, I really, when you were talking about our soul's purpose, I'm here to light up people's lives. And I'd want, if I can do it from the comfort of my home, sure, through some Zooms here and there, and that's a piece of it. And I value very much, and I'm honored to be, for example, on this show. But I think 20 years from now, who knows what change could be caused or created by reminding somebody that they have the choice to be brave. And look, I always say, nobody ever wakes up and says, I'd rather be mediocre today. But so often, so many of us get stuck on automatic. So I just hope that I can, in my lifetime, inspire millions of people to wake up and know that you can take charge of your life and live your dream and share your amazing story, even if it's tough or difficult and was really hard to go through, because that can light up somebody else's life. And that's what I have in my heart about helping people find the courage to shine. So I just hope I'm doing it more. I've reached more people. And hopefully I've made a lot of mistakes. I'm committed to that too, because I am not on a mission here to be perfect. Put me in my grave if I'm done learning and growing, then I'll really be finished. But until then, it's all about sharing the shine.
Oh, sharing the shine. That feels like a perfect exclamation point at the end of this time together. I've got still got a ton of questions, but it feels like this feels like the culmination for you to really share that vision of who you're being out there in your life and in the world, an imperfectly perfect human being, as
Yes.
it were, you know, living the life of her dreams. I'm so happy and excited for you, Meredith, and I so appreciate who you are in the work that you and I share together, how I see you lead and support and influence people, the leadership skills that you bring to the work that we do. You have made such a difference in the lives of so many people. And I just want you to know how much I appreciate you and am grateful that you took the time to come and visit us here in the New Beyond today. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Judith. I want to just be like you and continue to keep rocking and sharing and leading. It's an honor to be here. Thank you again.
Oh, I'm sure you will be doing that and then some. You will be running circles around whoever I thought I was.
No, 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 no way. We're here with greatness if everybody's listening, and it started with Judith. Not, thank
Ah,
you.
thank you so much, Meredith. And listeners, thank you for coming and spending time with us today on the New Beyond. Until next time, many blessings.